This is my favorite food, chocolate. I'm going to test myself to see if I have the strength to not eat it before communion, since that would break my fast and prevent me from receiving Christ in the Eucharist. Now, I know what you're all thinking. This guy doesn't have any self-control. Well, you really don't know how much I love chocolate. Today's gospel says Jesus was led by the Spirit into the desert. Then he goes on to say that there Jesus was tempted. This raises many questions, at least for me. Why was Jesus tempted? Why in the desert? Why were these the readings selected for today, the first Sunday of Lent? But perhaps the biggest question is, how do we avoid temptation? The question of why Jesus was tempted is addressed in today's first and second readings. The first describes the gift God gave us via the first humans, Adam and Eve, of our uniquely human trait of consciousness and conscience. That is self-awareness. This is described in today's first reading, which, after they sinned, says the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized, that is, they become self-aware, that they were naked. Theologians tell us that Jesus, the man, probably wasn't conscious at birth that he was divine, but gradually became aware of it as he grew older. We are being given a peek inside the mystery of that dance between the God and man of Jesus. This provides us with an opportunity to be inspired and to imitate that divine dance within ourselves, since we also are human, yet have Christ dwelling within us. That lesson is reinforced in today's second reading, which says, "For just as through the disobedience of the one man, Adam, the many were made sinners, so through the obedience of the one, Christ, the many will be made righteous." Like all animals, we thank God we are unconscious of our heartbeat, but because, for me, that's especially a gift because I tend to be absent-minded. That could be a disaster. But like Adam, our unconscious can also bury bad habits, prejudices, and false programs for happiness. St. Augustine recognized this when he said, "I cannot grasp all that I am." That is why we need God's gift of consciousness in order to prayerfully coax out those bad, unconscious tendencies into our conscious mind, as Christ did with Adam. The answer to the next question describes how we can do that. The gospel itself answers the question of why Jesus was tempted in the desert. The desert provides a place relatively free of distractions. Setting a time of the day for nothing but prayer takes us deep into our soul, where we can consciously discover our hidden motives, including those buried in our unconscious that need healing. My favorite chocolate here demonstrates this principle. We all have appreciated eating a food we like with our eyes closed to lessen distractions. Now, this is a true story. While I was recently eating this chocolate, my doorbell rang. After greeting, then politely dispatching the solicitor, I suddenly realized that there was no enjoyment of the swallowed chocolate during that time, due to the distraction of my conscious mind by the visitor. The reverse can also be true. When God knocks on our door to visit us, we can be distracted by our ruminating mind's desires for food and other pleasures. Jesus was sent into the desert, not wanting to be tempted, but to pray. He was given the opportunity to change desert into dessert by simply adding an S for sweetening. The gospel itself answers the question of why these readings were chosen for today, the first Sunday of Lent. The desert leads us to the death of our false self by fasting from distractions. It then leads us to the resurrection of our true self in sharing Christ's resurrection at Easter. Christ showed us the way by first going into the desert to prepare himself for conquering death through his resurrection at Easter. The answer to the most critical question, how we can avoid sin, comes from the 4th century fathers and mothers in the Egyptian desert, who tried to imitate how Christ prayed in the desert. St. John Cassian wrote about their journey, which provided input to St. Benedict's Rule of Benedict, which formed the basis of the life in monasteries and convents even to this day. The most remote monastery in the U.S. is a Benedictine monastery in New Mexico, aptly named Christ in the Desert. I had the fortune of actually visiting it. St. Cassian described how to pray by letting go of ruminating thoughts, since they can be one of our main distractions. What results is a better appreciation of what we do have. My diet does not normally include fast food hamburgers, but after I returned from an assignment in the Arabian desert, the taste of a hamburger was better than ever. This is a classic example of fasting followed by feasting. Indeed, this is part of why we fast, to better enjoy what we have. The idea is to let go of asking for more and instead asking for less. Then what we discover is that less is really more. So this Lenten season, do I lessen the distractions of food, cell phones, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, FaceTime, in order to leave room for God's healing power? Do I acknowledge my faults and start to change my ways in order to experience God's love? Do I allow the divine healer to give me the opportunity to pass from human self-condemnation to human union with the divinity within me, which gives lasting inner peace? Do I not eat these chocolate kisses, but instead give them away to the young children after this Mass? Do I do that so that I may make myself more available to receive the divine kiss of Christ when he comes knocking at the door of my soul?